go ahead and get started with today's meeting. If you all will please join me and stand for the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, thank you for all of your many blessings upon this community, this leadership team, and upon this organization. We pray for your guidance and direction tonight as we make decisions on important matters that affect our citizens, and we ask that you grant us the wisdom to effect positive change for the betterment of all. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. City Manager, are there any agenda modifications?
Yes, sir. We've got two. First one is a deletion from today's agenda, and it is the approval of the request to owner of billboards to remove 5 billboards under the city's incentive program. And then we have a change of order, and that is under policies, policy formation and direction. We have discussion of proposed expansion of the Downtown Improvement Authority's boundary, which will be moved first under that particular section.
Okay, great. Noted. All right, for public presentations, will Angela Hindreth from the Department of Equity and Workforce Development please join me? And commissioners, as she walks forward, I'd ask that you give her a round of applause as she has just been named our new Director of the Department of Equity and Workforce Development for the City of Tallahassee. And Angela is here to present an initiative where employees from departments throughout the City of Tallahassee have been taking place and participating in projects and events that are intended to better and be better conduits of service and assistance to those in this community. So Angela, I'd like if you could give a couple of words and introduce your team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Assistant City Managers, appointed officials. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to introduce to you the new public servant initiatives. And these are individuals who work for the city with 5 years or less of experience, but they have been identified as go-getters. These are the individuals that we want to try to keep with the city because they've shown us the drive, the initiative, the ingenuity that we're going to need as we start to lose some of our workforce. We are fortunate to have 21 participants from 12 departments. This is our 3rd class. The class will last approximately 9 months. It takes about that long to birth a baby. And we're going to be birthing some really wonderful employees for the city to have for the future. I'm going to ask if we can have them quickly stand up, introduce themselves, tell us who they are, where they work, and how long they've been with the department. And we're going to start with Mr. Nico Lau.
I'm Nico Lau. I'm underground utilities wastewater treatment over at the airport. I'm an industrial engineer at 3. I'm in charge of projects and process improvement. I've been with the city 4 years and 360 days. Got 5-year anniversaries on Monday.
All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Charles Zickelman, also with Underground Utilities. We're out of Thomas B. Smith, wastewater facility, maintenance and compliance manager. I've been with the city for about 1.5 years.
Is there a mic that we can get to them?
Hi, my name is Paul Sharon. I'm with gas utility. The gas engineer.
I'm a civil engineer for the Resources Engineering Division of Underground Utilities, and I've been with the city about 2 years.
Good afternoon. I'm Jerry Nelson. I'm an electrical engineer with the electric utility. I've been with the city just over 5 years.
Hi, I'm Keith Burnsett. I'm concurrency manager with the Growth Management Department, and I've been with the city for about 1.5 years.
Good afternoon, Juan Victoria. I'm the manager of administration
Davis. I'm working in services with the city for about 3 years, project manager responsible for utilities.
Good afternoon. My name is Heather Skeeter. I'm the marketing specialist at Metro. I also work very closely with the Department of Communications. I've been with the over 4 years.
I'm Eric Hogue. I'm the Technical Operations Administrator for Public Works Operations in the city of about 9 months.
Good afternoon. I'm Tamika Smith with the Parks Recreation and Repairs Common Routine Center. I've been with the city for 2 years.
Good afternoon. My name is Charles Main. I'm a planner with Star Metro, and I've been with the city for almost 2 years.
Good afternoon. My name is George Gilchrist. I work with Public Works Operations in the Tech Support Center. I've been with the city for almost about 5 years.
All right, let's give them a quick hand, please. And let me just end by saying that they have a variety of activities that they're doing. They attend classes. They have actually gone up to the Capitol to take a look at what goes on over there. They've viewed or taken some trips to the various plants that we have here at the city, and the goal here is to make them well-rounded employees who have an idea about all the things that the city is doing and how they can possibly help to make this better. And I'd also like to recognize Ms. Dasri Thomas, who's coordinating this whole effort. Dasri, if you will, please stand. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Angela. And on behalf of the City Commission, we want to welcome you all and hope you'll stay. We know you'll stay because you look like you're happy employees, right? Most days. All right, keeping it going. I want to invite up my friends, Susan Porcio and Edward Marty Krink from the Big Bend Homeless Coalition. And to present this proclamation, the Big Bend Homeless Coalition has been a strong and tireless advocate for poverty in this community for some time. And undoubtedly, they are an amazing source of effectiveness, and much of their work has really helped to make this statement of paying it forward true. And so on behalf of the City of Tallahassee, I'd like to just read one of the whereas clauses and then invite my friends up to make a couple of comments. And the whereas reads, Pay It Forward Day is about all people from all walks of life giving to someone else and making a positive difference. And this incredible movement has become a worldwide effort being supported by more than 35 countries, including Australia, the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And whereas Pay It Forward Day is a time when all citizens of the City of Tallahassee can remind themselves of the extraordinary power of giving, and in this process, the City of Tallahassee would like to recognize April 27, 2012 as Pay It Forward Day. Susan, will you please come forward and give a couple of comments about Pay It Forward Day and maybe even give them a glimpse of what to expect this weekend? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners and Commissioner Gillum. We really appreciate the city's support in everything that we do to help end homelessness in our community. The city is such a valiant supporter in this program. The Pay It Forward Day idea is that for all of us who have had good things happen in our lives and blessings that have come to us, give us an opportunity to have a little way to give back to others, to instead of paying it back to people who have given to us, to pay it forward to those who might need a little help themselves. And for that reason, we appreciate the city naming Friday as Pay It Forward Day. And to celebrate Pay It Forward Day with the Big Bend Homeless Coalition, we have an event Friday evening that I'm going to invite my colleague, Eddie Marty Kring, to come up and tell you a little bit about.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, we'd like to invite all of you to join us on Friday, right, Clayman Plaza from 5 to 9. We're calling it the Pay It Forward Fish Fry. And we're going to have local bands, including Eclectic Acoustic, the Thursday Night Music Club, and 2 members of the Bedhead Betty Band, Julie and Diane. I see one of our board members. I just want to wave, Elizabeth Mack. And we're going to have fish fry. The fish will be provided by the Sign Yard Seafood Restaurant, and so it's going to be really delicious. And proceeds benefit Homefront for Veterans and our Hope Community Program for children and their families. So we really ask you to let your passion for service fuel our cause to end homelessness. So I hope to see you on Friday. Thank you so much for all of your support.
Thank you.
As a bonus, Commissioner Gillum will be one of our MCs for the evening.
So come on out. Thank you all very much. We've now reached a time in the City Commission meeting where we invite any appearances by those who have comments on an actual agenda item. So do we have any speakers who are signed up to make comments on the agenda?
We have several speakers. Trish Hansen and Felicia Knowles are here if you have questions on item 11.1, the request to waive fees related to the wine festival, but they don't have necessarily prepared comments. But the first on
Thank you very much.
the policy formation 1301 DIA expansion, Cynthia Tunnicliffe and Al Pacini are each here. Ms. Tunnicliffe first, followed by Mr. Pacini.
And as you come forward, I just want to remind you, each speaker has 3 minutes to address the commission on this item. You'll see there are a couple of lights. The green light will give you the go. Yellow means you've got a couple of seconds to round it up, and then red means stop.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Cynthia Tunnicliffe. I'm chairman of the DIA. Al Pacini's here with me today. And to talk about the expansion of the DIA. We're very excited about the possibility of expanding the DIA district. The downtown is not static. It's in constant movement, we hope, and we want to be a part of a growing downtown. We've talked to all you commissioners individually. We've talked to the Long Range Planning Committee. We talked to Mr. Tedder, the city manager, and we thought we had enthusiastic support. I'm not so sure the staff is as enthusiastic as we are by looking at the agenda item, but we think it's a perfect time to expand the district. There are no freeholders in the requested expansion area. This allows the district to expand without a freeholder vote, but hopefully we'll have freeholders in the future, and so to add to the revenue base. We've set out in our materials that we would have an outreach program for existing members. We are doing that. We are in the process of doing that. We have had meetings with the Downtown Merchants Association. There was a good attendance, 30 members. We've made presentations, and I can assure you that we will reach out to all of our existing members, and if they are not informed, it is not going to be for the lack of us trying. The staff recommends, however, that the DIA be required to take a vote of its existing members and have a majority vote on that, of its existing members. Now, I would say this is uncalled for and without precedent. The existing members are represented by the DIA board. There's no requirement that they have to ratify the DIA decision or the decision of this commission by a majority vote. The staff also recommends a majority vote of the entities owning property in the expansion area. I'm sort of speechless about this because these are all public entities. The city owns most of them. I assume you all know whether you're going to approve this or not. The state owns the majority, say, in the Cascade Park area, and the county owns a small parking lot. It's hard to imagine how you get a vote of these three entities, but it also will allow the state to veto any decision by the city that wants to expand its district. It will allow, but this will allow the district to grow without a freeholder vote. And if you allow me to put my lawyer hat on for a minute.
30 seconds.
I got it. 30 seconds, I'll put my lawyer hat on. The freeholder referendum is not provided, is only provided for freeholders. The statute that gives this commission and the DIA the right to expand says that it's only freeholders that have to vote on district expansion, not non-freeholders, which is the state. So we'll do whatever the commission wants us to do because we think it's the best interest of downtown to be in a dynamic, growing area and remain vital. And we encourage you to vote for option 2, which would allow us to expand.
Excuse me, your time's expired.
We're excited to work with a broad range of community groups. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cynthia. Al Pacini, Executive Director of the Downtown Improvement Authority. About a year ago, we started working on this on the board. We did several iterations and different maps of the district expansion, and on August 8th, finally, 2011, it was approved by our board. Most of the items that we say that we can do for the expanded district, we can do now. Develop interactive electronic property maps, develop an interactive map of Cascades, advertising for park events, develop, distribute brochures. We're going to expand the visitor guide and put the map in there now. Participate in a wayfinding plan. We were asked to be involved in that plan. We support it, and we can still be physically active in it for both downtown and Cascades, and work with the Cascades Park Experience, the Riley House interpretation of Smoky Hollow. We are doing that and have done that now. We will continue to do it. We've also suggested models for programs in the park, not that we would do them, but that somebody could coordinate these kinds of models for the events. Also, as Gain Street develops, we can attach them to the DMBA or create a new association for merchants and put on events down there as the vendors would and merchants would approve. All of that, there's most of that we can do now with the current and existing budget. I don't know anybody downtown. We've talked to the DMBA, FSAE, TSAE, any other members. They're all encouraging this. As a matter of fact, Vicki Long, who's the executive director of the Florida Association Institute of Architects, came by this afternoon and said, we hope this really happens. It's going to be important for downtown. Cascades is a great connection, and so is the Gain Street area. Finally, in the fiscal note, it mentions something about sub-districts. This is not germane to this discussion. It is not what we're trying to do here. It's an authority that the DIA has now to do, create a sub-district, and if so, anyone affected in the creation of a district and taxed would have to approve. So it's not anything we can just wave our hands and do. This is creation of new district, not sub-districts, and it is not germane. We think that you ought to be encouraging anybody who wants to get involved in the Cascades Park and the Gain Street area. You can't have too many people involved in helping promote it. What you do need is some central coordination. Thank you. I hope you approve option 2.
Thank you, Al.
One additional speaker at this time, Erwin Jackson on item 1302.
Erwin Jackson, 1341 Jackson Bluff. Commissioner Debbie Lightsey did a lot of good work in our community over 20 years. She even worked with me when I began to clean up the Odell Rancho, and now it is a new apartment complex, generating $500,000 a year in property taxes. Unfortunately, Debbie Lightsey is best known for being responsible for the self-serving and I believe illegal deferred comp plan. This has been approved by Mr. Marks, Commissioner Gillum, Commissioner Mustian, and I know Commissioner Mustian has agreed that he plans to give this money back in the future. Mr. Marks and Commissioner Gillum, I assume, prefer to keep their ill-gotten gain. The deferred comp plan was known as a Debbie Lightsey retirement plan. A city employee first told me about the deferred comp plan almost 2 years ago. I shared this information with the media, and as we all know, a firestorm of opposition grew. Specifically, ex-Commissioner Lightsey's salary is $36,000 set by the city charter. You gave her the $22,000 that each took for several years. She added them together and said that her salary was $58,000. Her salary was never $58,000. After several months, and thanks to the election a couple years ago, the mayor and the commissioners decided to stop taking the $22,000 because it was just wrong. However, this commission refused to return the $125,000 to $150,000 you have in your individual retirement accounts. The mayor's defender of all crimes, City Attorney Jim English, has refused to allow the State Attorney General to review the legal standing of deferred comp actions by this city. This commission cannot look the other way, ignore the truth, hope the public will forget the irresponsible and self-serving act that we know as deferred comp. How can this commission even consider honoring ex-Commissioner Lightsey, who dishonored herself in this community when she agreed to participate in the deferred comp plan created specifically for her? Commissioner Lightsey, every month you take money from the city that you did not earn. Your fellow commissioners have stopped the practice. It's now your turn. The community is asking that the retirement income be based on her real salary as set in the charter of $36,000. Commissioners do not honor a person who has dishonored her own community. Thank you very much.
Are there any further speakers?
No additional speakers.
Okay, thank you.
If you don't mind,
Commissioner Ziffer?
I believe, if I'm going to ask you all to come up and just say something about the Brogan, if you wouldn't mind, is that all right?
That's fine.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, City Commissioners, Acting City Manager, City Attorney, and Treasurer Clerk, Jim Cook. My name is Trish Hansen, and I am an independent contractor for the Mary Brogan Museum of Art and Science. And I would just like to talk a little bit about the agenda item 11.01. Just so as an update, the Brogan Board of Directors is actively seeking reinvention, and funds from the 10th Annual Florida Wine Festival will assist in those efforts. The consideration for waiving city fees would be tremendous, as this year we have had to pay for costs associated with the wine festival that we would normally have been donated in years past. So it's our hope that you will consider that, and it is our hope that you will also join us at the 10th Annual Florida Wine Festival, which will take place on Friday, May 11th from 7 to 10.
Great. Thank you, Trish. Seeing no other speakers, are there any items to be pulled from consent, Commissioners? If not, is there a motion?
Consent.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve consent. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. On to City Commission items. Commissioner Ziffer.
It is a request, as Trish Hansen just elaborated a little bit, for some funds to for the city to waive for the expenses related with the 10th Annual Brogan Wine Festival. As she said, and I sit on the board as a representative for the City Commission, are in the process of reinventing and moving closer to being able to make some announcements on what that will be. It is a substantial fundraiser. It's the biggest fundraiser of the year, as it has in the past for the Brogan. And so I would ask for Commission support for the waiving of the fees, which are approximately, as I recall, around $2,000. This is a substantial reduction from years past. The wine festival has been downsized to a degree, but it is, as I said, still a substantially important event for the Brogan Museum. So I would move the item. Can I do that?
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
Well, I hate to be the, once again, the Scrooge on this, but I just feel like, I mean, if we're going to have this policy, then we can't make exceptions for everybody that asked for an exception. And we had a request, what was it, 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, from the Irish Festival, same thing. And so I just don't see that. I mean, the one thing I would offer is that we do have, through the CRA, some ability to request money for special events. And I think that, in my view, that's where I would direct these type of requests to go, because I just don't, I mean, if we're going to waive fees, then we might as well just not impose them. So I'm going to vote no on this.
As a follow-up to that, how could we go about sort of formalizing this? I mean, the main reason that I was positive about this was because it was the Brogan, and we're trying to get them through a really tough year. But I do share Commissioner Mushin's sentiments to a large degree, and I would like to know if it's possible, if people are in a CRA district, if we could make it a policy that they go to the CRA first. And then, and beyond that, how do we get a some sort of formal criteria about when we do this and when we don't?
Commissioner Ziffer.
Well, I think there actually is a formal procedure through the CRA, and the only thing I can say at this point regarding this particular request is, quite frankly, the last 6 months have been an interesting time for the board of the Brogan, and we have been working on an awful lot of other issues related to some expenses that the Brogan had to make up, and other issues related with the temporarily discontinuing of operations. So in defense of the board, they have been a bit preoccupied, and probably the appropriate would have been either through Tourist Development Council or through the CRA, but they did not.
Mr. Parker, you want to speak to the timeline given when this event is scheduled for CRA board meeting?
Well, the CRA sets aside $20,000 for each district each year. We have a competitive process. All the funds for the current fiscal year have been allocated, so the next opportunity for funding will be on October 1st of 2012.
Okay. You know, my inclination would be, as has already been described, that this go through the CRA process. Given, however, the significant place that the museum holds in the downtown area. I mean, it is a huge building, and we're trying to figure out, the board is trying to figure out rather diligently what to do next with that facility. I would say any effort that brings additional revenue that allows that process to continue it is a good thing. And so I don't want to set any precedent here, because I think the characteristics in the situation we're dealing with is pretty unique. But I will vote in support of the motion in this case. If there are no further comments, all those in favor of the motion to approve the grant say aye. 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 Those opposed, no. No. Motion passes 3-1. Moving on to policy formation. Mr. Assistant City Manager.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we do have 4 items. The first is the item we just previously discussed, which is the expansion of the Downtown Improvement Authority. That request is coming from the DIA agency itself. Staff has carefully reviewed the DIA's request and evaluated both the potential short and long-term impacts of the expansion, as well as the DIA's proposal that the DIA provide services in both the expansion areas and the existing DIA district. I don't know if Mrs. Tunnicliffe wants to come up again and present.
They do want to be able to answer questions and possibly provide more information.
All right. So Roxanne Manning is here to provide a quick lead into the item.
Okay. Commissioners, Roxanne Manning for the record with the Planning Department. You have before you a report and a staff recommendation regarding the proposed expansion of the Downtown Improvement Authority District. I'd like to start off by discussing a couple of things that have already come up tonight. The first item was the sub-districts question, and whether or not that is germane to this entire discussion. Part of what staff does when we do a staff report is we try to give you as thorough a picture as we can of what the proposal is and what the impacts would be. And in this instance, because this is an agency that has the ability to levy taxes, one of the things that staff endeavored to do was to take a look at the fiscal impact or the financial impact on the properties in the proposed areas. And one of the things that we had to do was to try and ascertain how much the DIA could levy, you know, what are they limited to and what is their ability to tax. And that's why the sub-district language is in there. When there is a freeholder, which is basically a private property owner, in a DIA district, then a 1% mill, or 1 mill, I'm sorry, is levied on that property as long as it's privately owned. But also, once a DIA district is created, they do have the ability, with a vote of the freeholders, to establish a sub-district, and they can levy an additional millage in the sub-district, and by statute that's unlimited. And that's why that language is in there. We want everyone to have a clear understanding of what their ability is. We aren't able to tell you what the exact fiscal impact would be on any given property because we don't know if they would ever want to establish a sub-district. They haven't since they've been formed, but they may in the future, and we don't know what amount of tax they may choose to levy. So we tried to give you an estimate of that impact. Another thing that we're recommending is that they go back and notify the property owners in the district, which primarily the state and the city and some county. The reason we're doing this is we're mirroring the intent of the statute that created the DIA, and the statute is very clear, but it addresses only freeholders or private property owners. It did not anticipate public property owners, but they're very clear. If you're creating a DIA or if you're expanding it, you have to go to these freeholders. You have to have a written vote and all that. We felt that because other agencies or entities are in the expansion area, the state, for example, that they should be notified and that they should have a say on what happens to this property and whether or not it goes into a DIA district, because although it is not taxable right now, if they ever choose to sell any of that property, it does create an impact on the property, and we just wanted them to be aware of what is being considered. So that's why we're proposing a recommendation that basically mirrors the statutory intent, which is to go back and get a written vote or some type of indication. I did speak with Ms. Tunnicliffe yesterday, I believe, and they expressed concern about being able to notify the property owners or even identify them, you know, and what type of vote are we going to require? And certainly we don't want to have a huge vote, you know, with ballots and all that. We did indicate that, you know, we would like to consider help. The planning department can help the DIA. We can help them notify property owners. We do that all the time. So it's easier for us, and we'd be happy to help them notify and reach out to them, and that perhaps simply something like a letter from the entity that owns the property might suffice to indicate support or opposition. So having said all that, we do have Al Pacini and Ms. Tunnicliffe here to answer any additional questions you may have. I'm here to answer any questions, but our recommendation is option 1, which is requiring the DIA to go back and notify property owners in the expansion district and in their current district and get some type of indication of support or opposition. If there is more than a 50% indication of support, then staff will bring back the ordinance which implements the expansion to the district at the first available meeting.
Commissioner Miller, I know that this came, and I can't recall who else is on the long-range planning. Commissioner Mushin. Commissioner Mushin and Commissioner Miller.
They've already forgotten me.
You're still in my fondest of memories, Commissioner. But was a question ever raised around, when looking at these boundaries, one of the things that stuck out to me, and I did mention this when I met one-on-one with a group, was one that Hotel Duval was not included as part of the downtown piece. And if it's not in it, I can't think of what we're talking about when we say downtown districts that don't include some of those, quite frankly, centrally located downtown properties that are just across Tennessee Street. The other thing that I found interesting about the map was the bifurcation of Gain Street. The fact that it takes in one portion of Gain Street and leaves out, after Railroad, across Railroad, the other part of Gain Street. And again, given all the investment that we're making in that part of the city, a district map that does not keep Gain Street in and of itself whole does cause concern. And then last, with regard to the Cascades Park area, whether or not we're being a little bit sort of preemptive given the number of committees that are out discussing and determining what's to happen in that area. And so I'm curious to know whether or not this was discussed, kind of where you all landed with that, and why we're meeting this decision today. I don't know if there's any thoughts on that.
Go ahead.
We didn't talk at long range that I remember about Gain Street beyond the city and county or the public property. The thinking, but having worked with the folks in the DIA, and I understand what their thinking is in going forward with this. Basically, they have worked to exclude the folks that the freeholder vote, thinking that there are properties in here, though, that are probably going to come up for sale and will become freeholders in the future. This whole attempt is to get ahead of that, and while there is, basically it's non-controversial to go ahead with the vote, I have a certain amount of concern about asking the state to approve this. If we approve it as the city, we essentially are voting. That only leaves the county, and I don't have a problem with asking them where their property is concerned. But I think that the one thing about this that I do think is that it's important for all the people in the existing Downtown Improvement Authority to understand the point of the expansion. And I'm not clear from anybody out there. It sounded like Cynthia said that a lot of this work had been done, that you've been contacting these folks. I trust them to contact the existing business owners. And I feel that they will do that. I know that it's a sentiment of the staff that we are throwing yet another player into an area, into a sandbox that's already full to the max with sand going everywhere. So that's a separate issue, and that's something that you all can take under advisement and try to decide what you think about. The Downtown Improvement Authority, though, has done an excellent job in doing the marketplace and the downtown get-downs, and I think that they feel they have the expertise to at least calendar the events that go on in the park. So that also, I think, is a big part about why they want to go ahead and get ahead of this at this point.
Commissioner.
Sure. I'm going to echo a comment you made, Commissioner Gillum, and that was in relating to Cascades Park, that it's a little muddled at this point. But I'll go a step further, and that is, and it's acronym city here, that between COCA, CRA, the TDC, and and now Downtown Improvement Authority, I'm not altogether sure I'm prepared to make the determination today which one is going to be sitting on top, which is essentially it is what we're doing, because over the next 5 or 6 or 10 years with the development that we're talking about in those areas, there's going to be a substantial amount of money placed in the pot in this organization. And I'm not convinced at this point that we have taken enough time to determine how that's going to be used, what it's going to be used for. And I know that's a determination of your board, but I don't feel comfortable yet with giving that assignment over to the DIA. So at this juncture, I'm not prepared to support moving forward with this. That's not to say that in the future I wouldn't be, but right now, until some more of the decisions are made on what's happening at Cascades Park, until some more decisions are made on what's happening as a result of the College Town on the other end of Gaines Street, which is not part of this, there are too many unanswered questions for me. So from my standpoint, I'm not prepared to move forward.
Commissioner Mushroom.
Well, I guess I have some mixed feelings about this. On the one hand, I mean, I understand exactly why the DIA wants to do this. And, you know, while the properties are in government ownership, you know, there's a relatively easy path to, if we want to expand the district, this is the way to do it. I mean, I think the reason that probably some of the map issues Commissioner Gillum identified aren't there is because those are in private ownership, and they were asking people to approve a tax on themselves, which is a, you know, not necessarily a highly likely thing. And the part about getting approval from the state, I mean, God, it is hard enough even to figure out who to talk to at the state. So, you know, I'm not as caught up on that. But I am a little bit, and these are all my friends, so but whoever the wag was that says that the surest sign of everlasting life is a government program, you know, I have a little sense of that with the DIA, that, I mean, what are we really doing here? Do we really need this? Does it, you know, if you took a poll of the current property owners in the DIA, would they say, yes, absolutely, or you mean I could get a mill off my property taxes? You know, so I think we ought to just drop back a little bit and think, what are we as a commission want to do? Is there a role for the DIA? What is that role exactly? Cascades Park, I agree that the last thing we need is more governance, you know, issues there. I don't think that's really what they're talking about, but at least we ought to, I'm more, you know, we do have a lot of overlap, I think, with the downtown CRA and the DIA. The downtown CRA will go away eventually. So, you know, and this potentially stays. So we kind of ought to drop back and maybe have just a more thorough discussion about what's the role, what do we want to do. And if we think there is a role, then I'm not necessarily opposed to doing what they've suggested, that, you know, all right, we agree we need this, it is a role, you know, these properties will eventually come on the tax roll and we'd like them to be a part of the district. If we feel that way, then we ought to go ahead and do it. And if we don't, then I think we ought to drop back and see, well, what do we really need this organization to begin with?
Is there a motion on this, or Commissioner Miller?
What if we deferred this until sometime in June? After, that's going to give them more time to go out and talk to the folks that are in the current DIA and possibly come back with a petition or something indicating support. Also, it'll give us, we have an IA meeting in June, And at that point, we're supposed to hear from our manager and our county administrator on programming, ideas on programming, and I guess Mr. Tedder too. So would it be better to have that, let them have those discussions without complicating the picture at this point, and yet they bring in the potential of using DIA for some of the tasks?
What I'd suggest is maybe we, and maybe the CRA is the format to do that, but just have the DIA come in and let's do a presentation of what exactly they do now, you know, what their current role is.
Right.
I mean, I think we all know some of this, but you tend to forget or sometimes don't really realize what is going on. And so let's come in and present that and maybe, you know, take it from there about, all right, well, this is what we're doing. Do we want to try and expand this as this, you know, as this area develops and go from there?
Yeah, I mean, Commissioner Mushin, what your suggestion, I think, is associated with the map, but it's a blowback. It's a let's have a full-on discussion, and I think that's certainly appropriate because when I look at the maps, while I definitely understand why you would want to avoid having to go and ask freeholders for a vote on millage, so on and so forth. To me, that isn't the driver behind how you would vision what you would include in your downtown boundaries or your map. There's probably there's another strategy you might want to employ, and for me it would be, all right, what are the parts of downtown that are truly, you know, they're contiguous and you would truly identify as part of a downtown sector. And when I think about that, at least in my head, for me, Gain Street definitely doesn't sort of rise to that level. I think to me it's emerging a totally different clientele and attitude and different level of investors, and the products that they're trying to produce there are probably marketably different than anything that we might want to see in downtown. And I say that knowing that they're only a couple of blocks from each other that we're talking about. But a full-on discussion about downtown, the downtown district. How do you grow the downtown district in a way that truly captures what is downtown? And some of that, in my opinion, will include private folks who are freeholders in the area. And I think if there's a substantial enough case to be made as to why they should be included in the downtown district, you might know. You may never know what sort of traction you might get there, but there's the Downtown Merchants Association, which is also having some of these same sorts of conversations with their merchants around return on investment. What do we get, and how do we make sure that as everything else around us grows up, we don't get forgotten. Not forgotten, not just for its daytime uses, but also for its evening uses. And that's a real question. And I think we're looking to the DIA to be part of the solution for what that looks like. But I do feel a little bit that these maps put the cart before the horse on that bigger step back conversation. So I'm not sure if there's unanimity with us around wanting to have a presentation come back that speaks more broadly around the role of the IA, and then revisit those maps at that point. And I guess for you, Jay, we'll sort of rely on you and the city manager's office around scheduling. If that's the will of the body.
Is that a motion? I would make that motion.
It'll be done in a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you again to the DIA and that team for the work that you all do. Keep downtown vibrant. Moving on to item 13.02.
Commissioners, in recognition of her extensive service to the community and to acknowledge her commitment to protecting the environment, this particular item proposes naming a city-owned property near Lake Bradford the Debbie Lightsey Nature Trail. This 113-acre parcel known as the Delta Industrial Site was acquired by Blueprint 2000 in December 2006 for corridor improvements and environmental mitigation associated with the Capital Circle Southwest, and there is now an opportunity to actually use it in this stead. Mr. Wayne Tedder is here to provide a short presentation on the proposal.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just to follow up on what Assistant City Manager Mr. Townsend indicated, you may recall that the site that is located in the red here once was an approved concept for As the agenda reads, 3,245,963 gross square feet of non-residential use, commercial, specifically commercial and industrial. As you can see, the blue areas on the site, it is heavily constrained by environmental features. It was one of those things that, as we were looking at the expansion of Capitol Circle Southwest in this quadrant, it was an obvious choice to look at for opportunities for mitigation of not only wetlands, floodplains, but also provide stormwater quality within this area. So in short, what we have is a very conceptual plan of these areas that are blue are existing stormwater areas. They will be enhanced. There would be wetland mitigation within those areas. There will be an additional stormwater, so that cursor can catch up with me, additional stormwater management facilities built on this site for stormwater treatment for Capitol Circle Southwest. The idea is to have a small parking area, very much like you see at Lake Alberta, have a very passive pedestrian trail that meanders through those areas with a location for a wildlife observation platform somewhere in the central location of the site. Again, wetland mitigation would be occurring in this area. It will be heavily populated by a lot of native birds in the area. When you look at how this could connect to neighborhoods and other greenways and other components throughout our community, very easy tie into the Seminole Manor, so it would give them another opportunity for some passive recreation within the area. We can connect to what is going to be another stormwater management facility that will be a passive recreation facility built along with Capitol Circle Southwest. Also ties into Lake Cascade, and I'll show you a map how that ties into the greenway system. And then all the way down city property, city-owned right-of-way to the FSU Recreation Complex. So there's great connectivity to other amenities throughout the area. Commissioners, we have an adopted Greenways Master Plan. That is essentially what you're looking at this point. This green and black line identifies the conceptual location of where we want to make that greenway connection throughout our community. The site that we're talking about tonight, and again, this cursor is moving slower than I am, located just, oh, cursor, there we go. The site is located right here. So the idea is you can connect another greenway located here through the neighborhood, through the parcel, and down through the other greenway that we have already approved in our Greenways Master Plan. We are in process of updating that Greenways Master Plan. We hope to have that back to you by the end of this year. But given the opportunity, as we're going to start construction of this site in the very near future, it was a great opportunity to go ahead and include a named rights for someone who is very deserving of preserving the environment of our community. So with that, our recommendation is that option number 1, approve the naming of the Delta Industrial Site as the Debbie Lightsey Nature Trail, and direct staff to incorporate this and related master park planning into the Greenways Master Plan documents of the City of Tallahassee when we bring those forward to you.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller?
I am very excited to see this agenda item. That's the first thing I want to say. Debbie could actually walk to this park from her home, which is on Lake Hiawatha, on the greenway that you delineated there. And I think that she is very deserving of this honor, and I'm glad to see it happen this quickly. And with that, I'd like to move this item.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion, Commissioner Miller?
I just had a question. So the nature trail part, I mean, is that funded, or is that to be, how is that working exactly?
Commissioner, we have estimated somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000 to complete all the improvements. At this time, there is no funding, but it's very similar to other greenways. We want to at least capture the concept, and as funding becomes available, there may be, even through the Blueprint 2000 process, where we are connecting these greenways, to even consider that as connecting these greenway systems.
Okay, thanks.
Well, given Debbie's budget consciousness, it's apropos we give her a non-funded greenway.
I was going to say, Debbie, we love you, but we don't want to spend money.
She would feel the same about us.
Exactly. I would like to say, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, that in contravention of the comments that were made earlier, I mean, Debbie Lightsey put her heart and soul into this community. She's one of the best commissioners that I've ever seen, much less served with. I think she's very deserving of this, and I think really one of the minimal things we could do is name a wildlife and wilderness area after her. So I'm proud and pleased that we're doing that.
Yeah. I just want to add to that, Commissioner Mushin. I had the same reaction earlier. Debbie Lightsey and I only had the opportunity to work with her a few years out of her, I don't know, 24, almost 25 years of her life to this community and service. Almost never asking for much in return. Was a very, very fierce defender of the environment, of water quality, of environmental protection and stewardship. And aside from that, was well-versed and is well-versed on the range of issues. So she was never just singularly focused. She had a comprehension of much of everything that was happening in this community. I definitely think this is the least that we can do on behalf of the citizens of Tallahassee to gift this park to the community in her name. Commissioner Ziffer.
I just wanted to add, it was only a short period of time that I was able to serve with her, but I was just thinking to myself that if she were here now, this conversation would still be going on about 10 minutes from now. She would be addressing every single issue related to this, and she would have far more questions for the staff than any of us could possibly imagine, which is one of the things that I enjoyed most about serving with her, because you knew she was thorough. And so it is also with great pride and honor that I get to vote on also naming this after her. So I guess it's been moved and seconded. And
there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on.
Commissioners, the Master Transportation Plan for the Mobility District, also known as the Moving Tallahassee Plan, is a focused project designed to look at the transportation needs of our community by the year 2035. The goal of this project is to create a clear plan to achieve a safe, viable, and sustainable transportation network that will provide residents a choice in personal transportation. As you all know, during the past few months, much attention has been paid to the Tennessee Street pilot program, so we would like to take a few minutes to update you on the larger elements of this plan. Sheree Bryant is here to provide a short presentation.
Yes, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the pieces of this, but just to pull it into a cohesive picture and then to talk about where we are in each of these and where we're going. I know the public outreach was one that Commissioner Gillum had specifically brought up. I won't go over this in detail, but the guiding principles, as you understand, behind the Mobility District were to deal with the transportation and quality of life aspects for the next 20 years, knowing that we're not going to have money to build our way out of congestion. And the focus is a strategy to first build complete streets and then focus on the public transportation. Again, for the public, this is the Mobility District. I'm sure the commissioners are very familiar with it by now. But the goal is to connect all of these districts, these activity centers together. It's also part of a regional plan for connecting these activity centers regionally through transit and making it walkable within the nodes. The complete streets, of course, the focus will be in identifying network improvements to what we already have and facilitating corridor planning, completing the bicycle route network you've seen, and completing a wayfinding system. So what I'm going to do for this presentation is just to go through very quickly and show you where we are. The Lorraine Street example, extension, filling in the Star Metro sidewalks. We've got about $500 million of projects.
You don't have to race. You don't have to race.
That's right. I don't have to rush in this particular case. I'm so used to trying to cover so much material.
Don't talk faster than we can listen.
Okay.
Than we can hear.
I will slow down. The corridor planning, that is going to be a piece that can have one of the biggest impacts over time. Where we are, first off, the corridor planning is to identify the boulevards, the avenues, and local streets. Historically, what we've done is work off of the Green Book standard from the national standards of arterials collectors, and locals. This adds a local planning aspect to it, which is boulevards, which are your bigger streets, and they have a certain width of sidewalk, in this case 10 feet. Arterials, 8 feet. They're a little bit less congested, or excuse me, less busy than your boulevards, and then therefore they would have about an 8-foot sidewalk, and then local streets would have 6 feet. All of these separated by a planting strip with trees and hopefully shade. Where we are on this, we've driven with, we have a working group of staff with Public Works, CRTPA, County Public Works is also represented, and we've actually driven or walked all of these corridors and identified those which are boulevards, those which we think would be avenues, and then those which we think would work best as local streets or bicycle boulevards. So that's what we have done. We've also in the process of developing cross sections for each of these, showing where mid-block crossings should be, where certain things like bike boxes, which I'll show you an example of, would be, so that there's some detailed guidelines so that one, as public funds become available, those can be used to implement the plan, and two, as properties redevelop, they'll have a continuous sidewalk network of widths so that they can see what is, you know, they'll know in advance what is required as they redevelop the property. The bicycle route network, it has been a very successful project working with Capital City cyclists, other members of the public looking for recreational cycling possibilities. And the goal is, again, to connect those activity centers. There is an online application or an online version right now where people can click on each one and zoom in to see where the routes lead them, and we've gotten quite a bit of feedback via the website and at public meetings. The bicycle boulevards are another aspect of the corridor planning, and they allow cars on the road but are designed such that the cars drive slowly enough and bicycles are really the primary vehicle. And again, here are some examples of what the treatments would look like. The signage as well. Signs can be turned to support cyclists, especially when you're coming down a hill and you want to keep your momentum going up the hill. For a cyclist, it doesn't really matter for a car. Wayfinding, some new images that the Design Works, we've recently reorganized in the planning department to provide an additional design function, urban design function. They've created some new renderings of the signs, and these are at this point, we're working on creating a mock-up of the sign, a true full-scale mock-up of the sign. It will be a family of signs, so not only pedestrian signs, but also vehicular, directional, and gateway. And here's a rendering of what one of those signs would look like in Clayman Plaza. And this is actually where the mock-up would be. So a few months ago when we talked about this, we'd had the conceptual drawings. At this point, we moved on to having more of a concrete plans, so figuring out exactly how would these signs be built, reusing the existing poles we have, where should the poles that we have now for the Magnolia signs be moved, or where should they be, which ones are appropriate to stay. This design, it's changed a little bit from the initial concept. One, it'll have less wind load because you have wind that can go through these, but also the pieces of the sign can be slid over the top of the existing poles, saving some resources. A lot of the cost of the signs is actually in the foundation to make certain that they're secure. We've been working with the Clayman Plaza Design Review Board, and their architect is going to facilitate creating an initial mock-up full size at this location so we can see how it looks in the site and also get some feedback on what the public thinks about it. The specific, also identified in the downtown at least, some locations and cost estimates, and we have that for downtown. What we're working on now is for the entire mobility district, and that is the next step between now and where this project would be when we bring it back to you in November, is specific locations, estimates, and phasing plans will be included. We'll actually hope to get the sign part of it done in September to bring to you. The transit alternatives analysis you're familiar with, so I'll go through that, just reference it very quickly for the members of the audience. The alternatives analysis is going to be looking at the longer-term transit alternatives for the Tennessee downtown area and Tennessee Street downtown area. Another piece of that is looking at city parking policy recommendations. At this point, we just still need to work on providing the city recommendations and vetting that through you, and also working with FSU. The examples of the implementation steps that will be included in the plan, the update recommendations for updating the land development regulations, and hopefully even drafts of those. We expect to have actual drafts of what those LDRs should be updated to state when the setbacks should kick in for the wider sidewalks and for the planting strips. It's important to note that the existing code, the mobility district code that was updated last year, will give credit, green space credit, for those trees in the right-of-way. Even though it's public right-of-way, they can still get credit for that as an incentive for providing those additional urban facilities in this area. We're also, by the end of the year, we'll have an update to the Greenways Master Plan and the bike route system for the entire city and the county, with a goal of having a continuous network to connect those existing assets that we have in the Greenways and Park system, and connecting it to the activity centers as well as to the bicycle routes. So that'll be a very exciting project to come out of this. The others, all of these will actually be focused in special, we're going to put particular emphasis on certain areas in town, Myers Park, Midtown, University District, and the Tennessee Street Entertainment area as we're going through these process, because these are some of the areas where we've had transportation safety issues arise again and again. And just an example of the types of of aerials that you'll see. That's, for example, a bike route on High, showing the painted bike route, as well as a bike box at the top. Here is actually a small area right here where it lets cyclists go out in front of the cars so that they have the leap on making left turns when the light changes. So those are some aspects of the detailed types of improvements that will be shown for each corridor. And finally, the bicycle route system. We've been working over the past month more closely with FSU at making the connection of Call Street through the university. So that we'll be coming forward with some more of the details of how that could be implemented. And that's essentially where we are. Be happy to answer any questions.
Can you talk a little bit about what the public engagement process is as you roll this out?
The elements that I summarized, that a lot of work has been done already on the corridor planning and the bike route system. That has been vetted. A lot of people, we've received comments online, particularly, as I mentioned, on the bike route system, so a lot of that work has been done, and it'll be continued to relay that to the public so that they can give us some feedback. The biggest element of the outreach at this point is really in focusing on those areas, those special areas such as Myers Park and Midtown area, and holding another set of neighborhood meetings with each of those to make certain that we've addressed some of those issues. Just in the comp plan meeting last night, that raised again some of those transportation issues. The Myers Park area has also been very active and has asked us to come and work with them to make certain that we can clarify what they see as their needs. Indian Head, although it's not quite in this area, a lot of the residents walk to or cycle to the activity center. So Indian Head is another one where we'll be holding the neighborhood meetings focused on those areas between now and the completion of the plan.
And will there be any part of the plan that has any financial projections?
Yes.
All right.
Actually, the network fine-tuning, as I mentioned earlier, we actually have most of those things identified, and we have cost estimates for where we need bus shelters, where we need to fill in sidewalk segments, where we need to put in bike routes or bike lanes. We do have cost estimates for those at this point. And they're actually mapped in GIS, so you can actually go and look at them. What we need to do is, once we flesh out some of these other smaller neighborhood plans to go ahead and calculate those in, and we'll have per unit costs that we can provide. It'll be a big number, but there's also the prioritization system that you adopted last year, early last year, which those can be, now since that system is set up, they can just be folded into it, so you can see what the priority would fall out for each of them.
And you'll have to remind me, but I can't remember if the areas that we emphasize for placemaking have any priority in those, in that, and the criteria setting?
They do. They have there's a baseline level of criteria for ranking, but then there were three, one of them, safety being one of them, and the sense of place area being another, that put them into what we categorized as a Tier 1 project.
Gotcha. Commissioners Mushin, Miller?
I mean, I think one of the challenges for us on this, and not unlike some other planning endeavors, is for this to be a workable, usable document. And we've been through, remember the sector plan thing? We went in a ton of staff time, ton of money doing sector plans that are on shelves somewhere. And, so we really, and I saw a lot of, and I just kind of mean this as observation, not criticism, but a lot of, well, we could do this and we could do that and we could do this, and all of it costs money, which we have very little. So I'm not articulating this very well, other than to say I think we really need to put some thought into, and I ask you guys to, I mean, how are we going to use this? What is the real value, other than, well, yeah, we could do all this cool stuff that we'll never do, or we probably won't, or maybe we can prioritize. It would help us prioritize in some fashion. With the limited resources we have, this would make the most stuff given our community and what we have today.
I agree completely, Commissioner, about it being an implementable plan, and that's one of the benefits of having this done with staff. And personally, having worked with the sector plans and seen some of both the positive and the negative aspects of those. I don't even know if they're on the shelf anymore. But they are still considered, I joke, they're actually on a hard drive, but we just do still go back to refer to them. Part of what came out of the sector plans was such high-level policy guidance that what we've done over time is used that policy guidance as we've done rezonings, as we've done the mobility code, as we've done actually the multimodal district, and even as we've gotten into some of the corridor planning, we've gone back and referred to those sector plans because the neighborhood outreach during those did highlight certain priorities. So it's been useful in that aspect. What they didn't do is go down and give some very detailed projects and some implementation plan. The Mobility District Comp Plan amendment, when it was actually created in the comp plan, gave that vision and the general policy goals. And what this is the second the second phase of implementing the Mobility District, actually coming up with a list of projects and the costs and showing how we'll get there. And that prioritization system has been useful. It's been helpful as far as paying for Star Metro improvements. There's money that was in the significant benefit accounts, and that's been used to the prioritized projects have been funded partially by that. We also have a huge shift through the CRTPA and them taking all of our projects when they update their regional mobility plan and starting to put those in for funding. So funding being the key, what we want to come out of that is stating how we have the policy guidance, and then giving a list that can then be used as money becomes available, because pieces of money are coming along. So right. I agree completely. Personally, that's my goal whenever I work on something like this. I don't want it to sit on a shelf. I want it to go directly into being implemented.
And just one other question. Is there any kind of regulatory, is that restriction a part of this, or suggestion? I mean, I know we had, and I may be mixing the plans up. Is that any part of this effort in terms of facilitating the mobility district and that sort of thing?
Correct me if I don't answer your question fully. We already have land development regulations associated directly with the mobility district, which address the way that the buildings relate to the street. What this would do is result in some additional updates, refinements to that, not any specific policy shifts, but refinements to them, where they give, the regulations right now give a range of sidewalk from 6 to 10 feet. What this would do, once we finish this, there would be standards in the updated standards which would say along this corridor it needs to be a 6-foot sidewalk, on this corridor it needs to be a 10-foot sidewalk with a 3-foot planting strip. So yes, there would be regulatory changes that would come out of it. And we're also working to make certain that there's some give and take, so that it's not for those developments which might have to have a 10-foot sidewalk instead of 6, which is currently required by the sidewalk policy, to make certain that they get some credit for that, so that we're not reducing the development intensity of the project. The whole goal of the mobility district is to increase the intensity in the appropriate areas.
Okay.
Mr. Miller?
I just have a quick question. I know that I know Magnolia is right on the edge, but I also know that we've already, when we're having Tennessee Street, we already had people bringing up Magnolia and the need for sidewalks, and mainly sidewalks. That's the main thing I heard. But is that a possibility? I mean, where does Magnolia fall in this, since it's on the border? Is it included, or?
It is included.
Okay, good.
Magnolia, the sidewalks and bike lanes on Magnolia are already on the list of projects. It's a county project. A few years ago, it was a $15 million estimate. I hope that it's come down since then, because some of the construction prices have. But that's the reason why it hasn't been done already. It's just a pricey project, because you've got ditches, and so there would have to be piping in the ditches, and then the sidewalk go on top of it. So it's not as simple as going back and just putting it along the edge of the road. But it is definitely there, and it's definitely a need that's been raised over and over. And it is even though it is on the edge, that project is included already.
So it can only be done by the county?
Oh, I'm sure that any funding structure that came about, we could probably make it work, but the county was the one who wanted to, the county has had it as a priority for some
good.
time.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you.
Any other questions? This was informational.
This was informational
Great.
only.
Thank you very much, Sherry. All right, moving on to item 13.04.
Commissioners, the last item under policy, and it's the approval of the staff services agreement between the Capital Regional Transportation Planning Agency and the City of Tallahassee. Since its inception in 2004, the city has been providing the CRTPA services and use of city facilities without a formal agreement. The agenda item before you includes a staff services agreement between the city and the CRTPA that identifies services that will be provided by the city, as well as how the CRTPA will compensate the city for those services. Staff from the Department of Management and Administration, the City Attorney's Office, and CRTPA have worked jointly on drafting this agreement, and Mr. Raul Lavin is available to answer any questions you might have.
I'll move the item.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the item. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. We are at the point of City Commission break, but I want to offer my colleagues an opportunity to move on to information sharing if they've got any that they'd like to do at this time.
Just want to thank you for all that hard work you did last night.
You owe us. You got to tap us out at a future meeting. Anything else for information sharing? Okay, awesome. We'll be in recess until 6 p.m. for public hearings. in session for the public hearing. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I'm pleased to inform you we only have 2 public hearings this evening. First item is item 15.01, which is the first and only public hearing on a resolution 12R21, which is an abandonment of unpaid portion of right-of-way located on the east side of Eddy Road between Fairmont Lane and L'Ambla. This is the Highland subdivision, and it's here for public hearing and action.
We have 1 speaker if you have questions, otherwise no speakers.
Are there any comments or motion?
I'll move the item. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes.
The second and final public hearing, item 15.02, is a hearing on substantial amendments to the 2011-2012 HUD Annual Action Plan and appropriating funds and providing authority to enter into contracts.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Thomas Jones, who is our Coordinator of Special Projects, to give you a brief presentation on this action.
Good evening.
Evening.
A little background on this item, Commissioners. The city is a recipient of some federal housing dollars through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, including the CDBG funds, Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnership Funding, and Emergency Solutions Grant Funding, ESG. Annually, we receive funds on a formula basis so long as we are compliant with the HUD regulations. One of those regulations causes us to, on an annual basis, submit an annual action plan to HUD that describes how we will use our funds. Consistent with that, HUD says if at any point you choose to change those allocations or those uses of funds, then you must submit a substantial amendment. Our substantial amendment must conform with our citizen participation process that was adopted with our 5-year consolidated plan, and that includes 2 public input meetings and a 30-day public comment period. The first public input meeting was held on April 4th at the Lincoln Neighborhood Center. This will be our second public input meeting. This substantial amendment has 2 components, one being the ESG component, the other being the CDBG and home component. I'll talk about the ESG component briefly first. Over the past couple of years, HUD has spent significant time and energy revising the ESG program. Basically, they broadened the allowable uses for funds and also allocated an additional $47,651 for the current 11-12 program year. HUD requires that in order to receive those funds, we must submit a substantial amendment to the 2011-2012 Annual Action Plan by May 15th of this year. HUD also required that we develop program policies and procedures that encompass the use of the funds and performance measures for the program. And that needed to be done in concert with the lead agency of the Continuum of Care. In concert with the Continuum of Care lead agency, the Big Bend Homeless Coalition, we developed a ESG planning committee. And that ESG planning committee developed policies, procedures, and proposed uses for the funds, and that is evidenced in attachment 2, which is the ESG planning document. The planning committee recommends that we use the funding for what HUD calls rapid rehousing services to assist individuals leaving emergency shelters or transitional housing facilities. Rapid rehousing assistance basically is one-time financial assistance that includes case management to assist folks, like I said before, that are leaving transitional housing or emergency housing facilities. The recipient of this funding, the organization that will potentially carry out these activities, will be selected through a competitive procurement process. The CDBG and the home component is the second piece of the substantial amendment, and the Housing Division proposes to reprogram approximately $823,000 in home and CDBG funds. The sources for our CDBG funding, which totals approximately $283,000, are projects that were unable to move forward that were allocated funding in the past. One being a Good News Infrastructure Special Needs Housing Project for $150,000. The remaining $133,000, it represents funding that was previously allocated, however, not fully expended by the organizations who used it. The home portion of the amendment seeks to reprogram approximately $540,000 of home funds. And those funds are a result of projects that did not move forward that include the Big Bend Homeless Coalition and Lutheran Magnolia Acres project. And in our last annual action plan, we allocated $420,000 for that purpose. That project is not moving forward in the form initially anticipated. Another source of that $540,000 is $100,000 that was programmed for down payment assistance through the Tallahassee Lenders Consortium. And over the past few years, I'm sure you all are familiar with the housing market and what it has done, the downturn it has taken, and down payment assistance just is not as great of a need as it was in previous years. So we seek to reprogram $100,000 of the $150,000 that we propose to fund that project with. The remaining $20,000 of that total $540,000 is much like the CDBG funds, unexpended project funds from previous years. Okay. How do we propose to use this $823,000? The first source or the first use for those funds is our existing major rehab program, which provides major rehabilitation services to low-income individuals who own their homes and have health, life, and safety issues in the home, a number of them. We propose to use $560,000 toward that effort, which will result in an additional 14 households or homes being rehabbed. Another source of another use for the funds includes our emergency home repair program, which deals with homeowners who own their home, low income, that have a single or maybe two life, health, and safety issues in the home that we can deal with relatively quickly. But for the most part, it's still doing rehabilitation just at a much lower level. We propose to spend $110,000 of CDBG funding on that effort, and it will result in 20 additional homes receiving emergency home repairs. The third use for the funds is our accessibility rehab program, which provides accessibility modifications for households with a disability. We anticipate spending an additional $36,428,000 on that program, which will result in an additional 5 homes being modified. Another source of use, or another use for the funding is for our code enforcement demolitions program. Through code enforcement, we identify homes or structures that are unsafe, and we propose to use some CDBG funding to demolish those homes or those structures. And the last use of the funding is $5,083 was miscalculated in calculating our administrative fund for last year. So we underfunded administration by about $5,000 and seek to right that through this substantial amendment. Staff's recommendation, of course, is that you conduct a public hearing, approve the annual action, approve the substantial amendment, and authorize staff to negotiate and execute contracts. And this, for the most part, concludes my formal presentation. At this time, I can answer any questions that you may have about the substantial amendment. And if there are no questions, I request that the Commission open the floor and take public comment on our substantial amendment.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Commissioners, any public comment?
We do have one speaker. Do commissioners want to speak first? Okay.
Yeah, we'll go to the speaker first.
Take the speaker. The speaker is Curtis Baines. He's the only speaker on this item.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. Curtis Baines, 1323 East Tennessee Street. I wanted to speak on one particular aspect of this, encourage you to move forward with this, but in particular, there is a provision in here for $132,000 for demolition of unsafe housing. I don't know which houses are on that list because I didn't see one attached here, but I wanted to with all due respect to Commissioner Rushton's sensitivity to the purse strings and all, I think it's necessary in many cases to get rid of these unsafe structures. As I said, I don't know if in our neighborhood or in one of the neighborhoods where I have some property, I know there's a house burned November 3rd. It's been kind of abandoned. I've seen evidence where people are using it to discard household garbage. I'm getting reports from, some of my tenants about people using it as a public toilet, and the homeowners are not, the property owners are not acknowledging any kind of inquiries by the city or myself. So these are, it doesn't do us any good for the public health and safety welfare to allow structures like that to continue. So I would urge us to move forward with trying to provide funds for dealing with some of these housing. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know which houses are on the list or how many we're talking about or anything like that, but I think we need to get started in that regard so that we can try to at least eliminate some of these issues. I think 2 weeks ago, maybe about 2 weeks ago, I wrote Commissioner Ziffer after one of his town hall meetings about this particular property, and while I'm not advocating that particular property be demolished, I know there are a lot of other issues and a lot of other properties. I would like my comments, if possible, to be included with whatever we're forwarding on this, so that we can at least make that part of the record.
But you'd be happy if that property was demolished.
Well, it would. The thing that surprises me is I've got tenants who are more concerned about the appearance of the neighborhood than the property owner. Well, I like to think that says something about my tenants as well, but it also says something about the property owner. It's their property. As long as people were living there and there was a structure there, they wanted it. Now that it's been burned, nobody wants to claim it. So it
certainly seems like something code enforcement could.
No, I think
they've condemned it. I think they've taken. Okay. I'm sorry.
I think we're going through the processes. I recall from the email, and I think I forwarded to you, that we were already going down that road, and they were condemning it, and they were going to put it in the pipeline, and it sounded like it was going to happen fairly soon.
Right.
So I'll follow up and make sure of that. But I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comments?
Not on this item.
Seeing none, Commissioners?
I'll move the item.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 All opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for a very thorough report.
All right. We are now at the point of undegended speakers. Do we have any speaker slips?
We do. We have Dr. Irwin Jackson will be followed by Curtis Baines. Those are the only two speakers we have tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. I didn't dress up for you, but I do want to say my wife bought tickets to the hospital annual gala, which started 10 minutes ago. So I'm kind of in trouble, so I'll certainly make this within 3 minutes. We've talked about my lock. We've talked about the city not allowing me entrance. They removed my lock. I want to give a little historical perspective on this. January 31st, 2011, I asked Rick Fernandez, after a couple months of noticing the lock was removed, to simply return the lock that was illegally removed from by the city. I was told that the mayor and Jim English, the powers that be, refused this very simple request. March 4th, 2011, I asked that the commission here to assist me in just getting my lock back. All I want is my lock back to have access to private property, which is not owned by the city. On May 27th, 2011, the city acknowledged their fault in removing my lock. The city manager apologized. She asked I forward them my expenses, which I did without any legal fees of $2,512.50. 60 days later, or 70, August 3rd, they contacted me, and lo and behold, I received a check from the city for $75. Now, that's just an insult. And if someone wants to play around and insult me, that's fine. I'm a patient man. On March 12th, I'm not that patient. I filed a lawsuit. Now it's been almost a year, and I've got nothing in the county courthouse. I now have legal fees of totaling $4,720. and so almost 50% of my legal fees. In response to this, the city, Jim English, approved to go out and hire a spy. Lord knows how much that cost, instead of paying the bills that they were owed. On March 28, 2012, members of this commission asked that I submit the expenses again to Mr. English, which I did. And I asked my attorney to write up a settlement statement, formal, to meet their requirements. And he did. It was very nice. I sent to the commissioners. And then he added on the attorney's fee of another $1,680 for the settlement agreement. Now, keep in mind, this is only 50% of what Jim English's, or the city manager, the mayor, pays for his attorney. So today, all I'm asking is that you seriously consider just paying the expenses, because my only option now, according to my attorney, is to go to circuit court, where we can get up to $15,000. All I wanted in my lock, they keep dragging their feet, the legal fees keep building, and the only other thing I did ask, I don't want any family to have to be spied upon in private, thank you. And in summary, it's not good policy to have one person make a decision on who's going to be spied upon in private, and none of these commissioners have told me that they knew anything about the spying episode. You folks need to be notified if the city's going to spend money spying on citizens. Thank you very much, and I'm off to my party. Have a good night.
Any other speakers?
Next speaker is Curtis Baines.
Mr. Baines.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. Curtis Baines, 1323 East Tennessee Street. I wanted to follow up on something that I guess was raised maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and I haven't seen anything more about it. I wanted to raise it again, and that has to do with, over the past year, we've been dealing with, or we've been trying to implement Star Metro's new routing system, and several months ago, the issue came up because obviously you're placing a lot of emphasis and expending a lot of political capital and expecting a lot of public results from this transition. And one of the questions that was raised, I guess 3 or 4 months ago now, was just, what is it going to cost us to get to where you're trying to get? Now, I've not seen, and it's not necessarily that they tell me how much that's going to cost, but it seems like they should be able to, or someone should be putting that information together, particularly in light of the fact that now I think at one of the meetings I heard that we were talking about trying to go to the Sales Tax Extension Committee to try and propose a project to acquire more buses to try to fill the needs that we have in all the lanes and all this. I don't know where all that stuff was, but the Sales Tax Committee is meeting, well, as a matter of fact, I think their next meeting is tomorrow, and I don't know if anyone has, it's not my job to tell you to put together a project, I guess, for the sales tax committee, but and if you don't, that's fine, because my 2 sewer projects on the south side will receive less competition in the Oak Ridge area and the Woodville area. But I did want to mention, as a community, we're moving into this multimodal plan and placing all this emphasis on our Star Metro system and hoping to obtain great and wonderful things, which is fine with me if we do, but at some point we have to, in my view, figure out what it's going to cost to get us where we're trying to go, and I just haven't seen that yet, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baines.
I think we have a presentation coming up soon, don't we?
We do, Commissioner. You'll have that at the May 9th City Commission meeting.
Are there any other comments from my colleagues on the commission? Any sharing of ideas? Everybody shared out. That's all right. Well, seeing that there's no further business, I now adjourn this meeting of the City Commission.